Since the start of the Russian military operation, fierce fighting has been taking place. Russia took around 6 months to capture 22% of Ukraine's territory. Very recently, Ukraine had successful offensives and managed to take land back from Russia. During this conflict, thousands of casualties were recorded from both sides. More than 15,000 dead Russian military personnel, around 60 to 80,000 wounded, and thousands of military equipment lost or captured. Ukrainian losses go far beyond that, as Ukraine called up a general mobilization a long time ago to cope with the gravity of the current situation. Ukraine doing well and having robust resistance against Russia is no surprise. Ukraine was being trained and armed by NATO since 2014. This was disclosed by Jay Stoltenberg in one of his interviews. Scott Ritter, an ex-US intelligence officer, said if pre-war Ukraine was to fight with any NATO country except the US, UK or Turkey, it would win. It was trained and armed that good. Russia called referendums and annexed 4 regions in Ukraine, an action that angered Ukraine and NATO. Prior to that, Russia called up partial mobilization of around 300,000 personnel, and that includes only people with previous combat experience. An extra 50,000 personnel also volunteered to go to the front lines, a percentage of them foreigners. You see, Russia can't go on an offensive with the 150,000 military personnel that are currently on the Ukrainian front lines. Doing so will expose flanks and would be a disastrous move. Ukraine has at least 350,000 military personnel left, so Russia calling up these reservists will provide the front lines with an insane ability to push forward and capture territory. Russia halted any major offensives since July. It instead started taking defensive positions to buy time for reinforcements and for the Russian military industry to double or even triple its previous military production. All of that is to meet the demand of having adequate supplies for the new offensive this winter, and enough supplies to stockpile for any further escalations. Russia after July began fighting mostly from long range, using the capabilities of the aerospace forces, weapons like cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, artillery, or suicide drones such as the Shahed 136 to weaken its foe and cause panic, and it's somewhat working. The mobilized forces of around 350,000 personnel will join the front lines with heavy new equipment that will likely arrive in the upcoming couple of months, and a huge offensive will be taking place. The Russian forces will use industry new equipment like the Armata tanks, which likely be numerous in this upcoming offensive. Russia will be switching from a military operation which involves limited military power to a total power use, or in other words, a full-out war. That includes more personnel, newer equipment, and an air campaign that is more vast and more effective.
Processed. These troops combined with the 200,000 give Russia more than enough military capacity to do this. I think Russia is going to be unleashing a strategic air campaign that hasn't existed yet, that is going to shut Ukraine down, destroy it economically, make movement almost impossible.
Before this offensive, the Russian forces will target the energy sector and military infrastructure of Ukraine to handicap its logistics and movement. Russia can do that by using its own made aerospace ballistic and cruise missiles, but that comes at a high cost, as this aerospace campaign will need thousands of ballistic and cruise missiles. So we might see Russia importing cruise missiles or ballistic missiles such as the Fateh 313 from Iran, which would cost at least 50% less than their homemade ones. This would save Russia a lot of money. All of this will be followed by the Russian forces opening many fronts from various sides, likely from Kherson towards the southwest of Ukraine, and forces pushing from Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk towards Dnipro and the nearby regions, and probably even a new front from Belgrade towards towns of Sumy and Kharkiv. Using the full capabilities of the Russian land forces, aerospace and air forces will result in quick territorial gain. Ukraine will not be able to defend against numerous new front lines, likely against 70 to 80,000 trained and heavily armed and supported personnel in each front. The remaining forces of around 150,000 will be covering flanks. This new Russian campaign will try to gain new territory quickly and surround the Ukrainian forces in Kyiv. But it will not be an easy mission, as Ukraine happens to know this. They are leaving a lot of their fighting capabilities until this offensive begins, to give them a chance of counterattack or at least resist enough. Thank you so much for watching the video. I wanted to keep the video short and informative. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. And tell us in the comments below what would you like to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.